And now we'll kind of just move on to what we want to call maybe the recap or the through lines or the storylines of the 25-26 college football season. Um, there was a whole lot of them. I don't think there's necessarily a plan for this in terms of like I go, you go. It's just a matter of just kind of yapping at this point. Um, Aside from IU, which we've covered greatly at this point, I'm wondering if you agree with me. I think probably the biggest storyline or news or event that had happened this year probably had to have been the Ole Miss Lane Kiffin LSU saga of it all. With him like saying like I need to go to an SEC team that can actually win, and then Ole Miss proceeds to get to the semifinals and played a very tight game and very well could have played in this game. But then you can spend all your time talking about the Lane Kiffin of it all, which you absolutely should, because that was a wild story. But you can't tell the 25-26 season without talking about Trinidad Chambliss. And as much as we want to talk about kind of the Cinderella story that is IU, we have to talk about the Cinderella story that is Chambliss. Because this D2 kid from Ferris State transfers into Ole Miss. No one expects anything to happen, anything to come from it, because Austin Simmons is already your starting quarterback. And then come week 5, week 6, Austin Simmons gets hurt. And again, this kid that basically no one has heard of unless you watch D2 football comes in and lights the college football world on fire and becomes the top 5 quarterback in the entire sport, and probably would have won the Heisman if he played the entire season. And that was probably my favorite non-IU story of the season is this Ole Miss team.
I think that's a really worthy one. I think there just what he was able to do, specifically, I think in that Georgia game, I think just took it to a whole nother level of what we believed is possible for him. Where I think it was always like, hey, he's a fun college quarterback. Like the Oklahoma game was fun and all these things. And it's like, oh, you'll never like. And I feel like I was on. Even if I was anti-Lane Kiffin at the time, I understood his premise. Like, I don't think you can win at Ole Miss. I don't think this is a good enough team to win this year. So, yeah, I do understand taking the LSU job. That's a job that, you just don't take, or you don't leave and you don't decline.
Yeah.
Like, the only one to really leave is Saban, and he went to the NFL and he went on game day this year and said it was the greatest mistake of his life. So again, like LSU is one of those jobs, but still, like for LSU, for Ole Miss, what we talked about is like to just be there in spite, just be there in spite, and some of the leaders of this team very publicly being like, yeah, he's a liar. We didn't want him here anyway. I think we got a good guy in Pete Golding here, and like both the major players resign, like Chambliss and Kawan Lacey, hopefully are both back. Like Chambliss is really pushing to come back, and I think he will. But pretty interesting stuff. But my number one storyline, it's probably not everyone's number one storyline, but how did Bill Belichick's 33rd team play out this year? Because we don't get many connections to the NFL to college football, but Bill Belichick at Chapel Hill was one of the more bigger, one of those storylines going into the year, and called it the 33rd team. And Michael Lombardi is, what was it? They had how many transfers? They had like almost 80 transfers or something like that. It's just 80 new players probably is what I'm misrepresenting, but they were terrible. They were not good like fundamentally. They were not good like just schematically. They fired Freddie Kitchen to bring on Bobby Petrino now, which is awesome for everybody. But I was always skeptical of year one with Bill Belichick because I think the biggest thing with the NFL with him was his find and scouting ability. How are you going to do that year one? And how are you going to do that in this new age of college football where if you develop anybody at North Carolina, they're going to play at Miami or they're going to go to LSU or they're going to go to Ohio State? Like, that's my part that I'll never forget going into the season where it's like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is gonna be great. Gio Lopez is a good player. He won the Sun Belt like Rookie of the Year or whatever last year, and it's like, wait a minute, like Bill Belichick's not like this rah rah, like figure it out on the fly guy. Like this needs to take time. He needs to develop people, and he develops players to get them to the level that they need to get to. How is that going to happen in year one? And obviously they crash and burn. They go 4-8, and it's kind of an afterthought, kind of not, because like, what if this crash and burns again? I think that would be interesting because that's another part of this is that Signetti's rise, we all in going into this year wanted to attribute it to like this is going to be Bill Belichick. This is what Belichick's going to do. He's going to come to the minor leagues and he's going to dominate. And like realized very fast, like I don't know if he's built for it. I think he's trying to get back to the NFL. Don't think he's going to. So let's coach again at Chapel Hill. So I think that's my number one storyline going. It was my number one going into the year. I just wanted to see how it would work, and I'm happy to be on the right side of like, yeah, this is not going good, and I don't see a world where it does finish out well.
To be frank, that wasn't even something that was on my list, not because I don't think it was worthy of it, but because I forgot about it because it went so bad so quickly. Like, I remember the hype of that first game, and we're like, what is this going to be? And then, like, after the first quarter of the first game, you're like, okay, this is going to be like a garbage fire. Like, there's no need to figure this out because we already know what happens here. And it truly is, like, different. It is very, very hard to be a college coach because it's not like it in the NFL. And yes, we are shifting more towards that where you can just kind of say like, hey, come here because I'm going to pay you money. But it is so much different in college, sports because you now have to then go and sit in the living room of a family and say like, you should come here. And you have to convince them rather than the NFL. You can be like, here's this money. All right, go. And I can just scream and yell at you. You can't do that with college kids, right? It did end up so horribly, horribly wrong to the point that again I like virtually forgot about it until I forgot that he was the coach at UNC until I saw him on College Game Day, like dressed in the baby blue, and I'm like, oh yeah, you are coaching college football now. Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. This one's gonna be a little bit more niche, and I am definitely stealing your thunder here, and that's all right because I fully expect you to piggyback off of everything that I am saying because this surrounds your team so much. But one of my favorite storylines over the course of the season was Arch's development. Because through the first 5 weeks of the season, everyone was like, holy shit, this kid is actually kind of bad at football. Like, what is going on? We had Texas as the number one team in the country. He was an odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. And, he's actually just garbage. And everyone was so quick to write this kid off and be like, well, he's bad. He's not good. Joke's on you guys. But then over the course of the season and as it goes on, you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe this kid is actually good. Maybe he didn't quite live up. Maybe he didn't quite live up to the expectation that we had for him going into the season. But now he is actually a solid, good, and like college quarterback. And people got to the point that they're talking if he comes out to the draft this year, which he obviously isn't, maybe his QB 1, 2 at the worst at this point. And that is the turnaround that this kid has had after the national media spent the first 5 weeks of the season dragging this kid through the mud. And it was a fun storyline to follow, to see this kid develop, because it is one of those like screw you national media stories.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that was I always understood that it could be rocky, especially going on the road against Ohio State. But like it got to that Florida game where like looking back at the Florida game, it's like he was under he was drowning with that offensive line in that game specifically. But like in the moment watching that game, it's like, oh my god, he can't, he just doesn't see it. He doesn't see like a Manning. Oh man, like this is, of course, this is how it is. But like the moment, I think it was the week after. It was the game after. I know it was the game after. I don't know if it was like, I think they came off a bye. Can't remember. But when they played Oklahoma, and they played that front of Oklahoma, and he didn't drown in that game, that was when I was like, okay, all right, there's. I'm just gonna keep an eye on this. I still have belief. And the Kentucky game happens like soon after, but yeah, like in that moment against Oklahoma, it was like, all right, this guy, he is a he is a riser of a player, and I have hope that this can figure out. Maybe he's not the best player in the sport, but there is a world where this levels out. And then over the course of the finish of the year, I think there was a stretch where the last 3 games of his season is against Arkansas. Yes, I get Arkansas sucks, but like it's still cool to see 50 points put on a team after the start of the season. Has the A&M game,
Yeah.
and then they beat Michigan. Where like all 3 of those games, I thought he was special. I thought it was like, okay, like that is what you signed on for with Arch Manning. He looked like a difference maker, and so I'm really interested to see how this goes because you don't push the chips into 2026 and 2027 without the hope and belief that Arch Manning is without a doubt the best player, like the best player in the sport going into next year. Like I think that is on the table for it to happen, and I think you don't make all these decisions, you don't put all these funds if you don't believe that. So yeah, I'm pumped. Everybody's playing for second next year. Um, just all that's to be decided is what's the format A of what Texas is going to have to win. Are they going to have to win against 15 other teams or only 11? And what's the path from the number 1 seed on? Like it just, I mean, that's the question. That's the only question everybody's asking. So I'm pumped. Um, my next story, I think it has to be Penn State. I think there's other stories I want to talk about,
Yeah.
and we'll do one more each. I think that'll be good.
Okay.
But Penn State, Penn State going into the year having national championship expectation. When you have that drastic E word, they had set it up specifically. What is it? Buffalo, Villanova, and one more other like non-con, easy non-con game. They did this on purpose to really just corner this Big Ten schedule, and we'll go 10-2 at worst, and we'll be in the dance, and we have the team to do it. And we face Oregon in the whiteout, and we drown. And from that point on, it and also like the Jim Knowles thing, like they plucked Jim Knowles from Ohio State. That was another big like, haha, like that was a big James Franklin win. Like I got him, I got the guy, like that just won the national championship on the defensive end. Like we're gonna max out now, and all these things lining up for Penn State to go on this epic run, and their coach is fired in October. Like that's unforeseen stuff, and like Penn State lost to Northwestern. You can do all the UCLA thing. Is like UCLA was a worse team. I get that. But Penn State lost to Northwestern. That is the one that is always going to stick out in my mind. And that game where it was like the booing, Allers carted off. We know nothing about it. He's going to the podium. Just you sit there and it's like, is that it? Like that might be it. That might be all she wrote. And they acted incredibly fast. Like it was Sunday during the football or during the NFL games that it was like, yep, he's out. Within 24 hours gone. We're not doing this. And And I think what's also fun is like we both disagreed on it, where it's like you are like, well, it's because like they can't win the national championship, and it's like for me, I'm like, well, if they were in the Final Four again, he's not getting fired. It's the fact that like we have a stretch of the whiteout game against Oregon, the UCLA game, and then Northwestern. You just can't come back from that at all. And I think what's great is both of us were right because like it also came out where it was like, yeah, this is because we can't win the national. We can't go all the way with James Franklin. That is why it was easy to make that call. And oh yeah, by the way, you can't lose to Northwestern at Penn State. So it's like this surreal like coming of Jesus moment that where like everybody is coming back for this year and this year only, and that quickly it's just underwater. Like Texas was underwater in September and the Florida game, but there was still like this belief that it was like, oh, it's still only 2 losses. Everything's in front of them. Penn State from the moment that Northwestern game ended and Aller was out, it was over. It was over. And shout out Terry Smith because that was a fun story to follow, where he's like
Yeah.
the remaining link of the Joe Pa era, and I know the Joe Pa era has its own clouds because of the scandal and things like that, but Terry Smith specifically, like for him to get a shot at this, and for the players to really like campaign for him, I think that was a pretty cool moment because I didn't know much about Terry Smith, if anything. I know he is
No.
Penn State, but I didn't realize like the I know it's funny, but the Pinstripe Bowl like interview with him always sticks out in my mind, and I'll never forget it. Where it's just like how much he was just like, football has given me so much in my life, and no program more than Penn State, and it's just cool to think about. But yeah, I don't think this conversation can go on without talking about the Penn State season.
No, absolutely. That Penn State season, yeah, it sure was a rough one, and I mean, not quite to the extent of Penn State. And then I'll make this point and then kind of get to my final storyline of it all, I guess. Not quite to the same extent, but like the Clemson downfall has to also be
Yep.
like spoken within the same vein. Again, not quite because they still have Dabo there and everything. But like going into the season, people were like, Clemson might be like the team to beat because all of this NFL talent they have, especially along like the defensive side of the football. And then week one happens against LSU where you saw the struggles, but you're like, well, at the time we're like it's against LSU. And LSU is a team in their own right that might be trying to compete for the national championship. And then immediately after that, the Troy game happened. And yes, they ended up beating Troy by 11 points, but the halftime of that game was 16-3 in favor of Troy. And you're like, uh-oh, this might get a little hairy. And then again, that's all she wrote at that point because then Syracuse happened and we're like, okay, this was bad. So, in the same vein that you talk about Penn State, I think Clemson belongs in there. And then I'll cap it off with kind of my final storyline that I thought was fun. Uh, and this is a fairly recent one. This one's a through line, but Notre Dame and their opt out. That was a very, very, very big talking point. And again, you look back on it and you can say, well, the committee like kind of got it half right because Miami did end up going, to the national championship and good for them. But then on the other hand, you could be like, well, yeah, Alabama might have won week one, but they absolutely got curb stomped in week two, the college football, playoffs. And all of that. I mean, fans were in uproar when this happened, as they rightfully should. And this might have, again, lasting effects over the next 40 years when talking about the college football playoffs and everything. But for them to not make it and then turn around and be like, we're not playing any bowl games at all, actually. Screw you. The Pop-Tart Bowl can suck it, which how dare you? How dare you rob us of the Pop-Tart Bowl? No team is greater than the Pop-Tart Bowl, let me say that. But I truly, truly mean that. But I mean, people were just up in arms when that happened, especially for those seniors and everything. But yeah, that was just a big piece, especially to kind of wrap out the regular season.
So I'm this is gonna be a way for me to get sneak in another take, but like my third one was piggybacking off of this, so I'll just use it and say this is your take
Yeah.
too. But like the committee, the committee making the decision to put Miami over Notre Dame, I think is one of the storylines of the season because of what you said. So many how both of those teams go in opposite directions. How Miami didn't really beat anyone down the stretch that was different from Notre Dame. They both beat Pitt. They both like had some wins against ACC foes, but neither one of them had like this separating win. But Miami inches closer, and they finally get to do the head-to-head thing. Like everybody's asking, why are we not honoring the head-to-head, head-to-head, head-to-head? And head-to-head is not honored until the week that they don't play. So like for Notre Dame fans, I get it. If my team didn't play and your team didn't play, and my team's been better than your team this entire time, but now we're not. Now we're not better than you because BYU lost by a lot. And oh, by the way, Alabama didn't drop in the rankings, but in the SEC title game, but that's different. That's its own little subplot. But just seeing the way that Miami and Notre Dame both went in opposite directions. You took the Notre Dame side, the opt out. Screw the Pop-Tart Bowl. We're not giving ESPN any of our revenue. We're not giving them any of our ratings, which is fair for them. But it does suck for the players. It does suck for the fans. It does suck
Mm-hmm.
for you don't have to like if you're a Notre Dame fan, you don't have to act like they're doing the upstanding thing and I support them. Like you could be bummed that Notre Dame didn't play a 13th game. That's okay. Like that's like I saw a lot of like blind Notre Dame like fan where it's like they're doing the right thing, like good for them, and it's like I mean, like the ACC game, like Fox hosts the Holiday Bowl. Fox hosts, and that's an ACC game. So like, you could have gotten a national audience on one of the last days of the year on Fox. So you can't really blame the ESPN thing to me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Miami side, Miami goes on this wondrous run that gives everybody hope now. It gives us the hope and possibility and expectation, in my opinion. This is going to expand even more. We're going to put even more teams in because of Miami and what Miami is able to accomplish. And yeah, I mean, them being able to go into A&M and then go in and beat Ohio State coming off that, that Indiana loss and then beating Ole Miss. Like, I think it's awesome to see Miami and then give Indiana the one true challenge they had pretty much all season outside of maybe the Ohio State game and some moments along the way against Iowa, Penn State, but just in that run specifically. So Miami to get there, to just see those two teams have this like entire November debating each other. We make this drastic decision. No, we're gonna put Miami in, and Miami proves them right. And Notre Dame, they didn't play, so I can't say they proved us wrong, but their semantics and their decision kind of it just leaves a bad taste in the mouth of Notre Dame's season after starting 0-2 and having this 10-0 finish to the year against nobody, like against like no real major competition outside of USC. I understand that, but still winning 10 games in a row is hard to do. Ask the
Yeah.
ACC. Like again, like the ACC had a 5-loss winner this year. So the final one, I think this is pretty obvious, but it still needs to be like it is still a talking point. The Big Ten passed the SEC. The Big Ten, there is this finally like this changing of the guard that the Big Ten is the conference, and to have the last 3 national champions, 2 of them be undefeated. I saw a funny tweet where it was like the last 3 national champions in the Big Ten, and it's 2 undefeated seasons, 2 Big Ten title games, and it's like Ohio State didn't win the Big Ten or the undefeated season, so it's just a way to kind of knock Ohio State a little bit there, but still for to be Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, but like it was supposed to be Penn State, but they get there regardless. The Big Ten having this run where again, like for so many years, like when Michigan won, it was like when that was a take, when it was like, oh, the Big Ten is like back, the Big Ten might be the conference, to look at, and it's like we're getting Oregon, we're getting Washington, USC, and it's like I need more data. I need a little more time, guys. Like the Michigan thing, like Harbaugh's leaving. This is just a wondrous team. Like great job, but like we're fine. And then the SEC only has one representative in the Final Four last year, Texas, who was a brand new member. Okay, interesting. And then Ohio State wins the national championship against Notre Dame. So there's no representation of the SEC again. And then this year, the SEC has one representative in the Final Four. Ole Miss without a coach? Like, it just. That's not Alabama. That's not Georgia. That's not even Texas, who was the number one team in the country going into the year. That's surprising. And once again, they don't have a representative in the national championship where the ACC kind of de facto gets a second because Notre Dame could be classified under the ACC and Washington is Pac-12 to Big Ten. So it's like there is this stretch that since the TCU game, this TCU blowout by Georgia, the SEC hasn't had a team in the national championship after so many years of being like, we put all the teams in the national championship. Look how good we are. And I don't think it's like hard to like make that decision. Like I do think
No.
the SEC is the deeper conference. I think from top to bottom there is better talent. The recruiting rankings, the transfer rankings, whatever you want to look at, there is better talent. But you can't argue the top end talent. You can't argue who the better teams are in the country and where they reside, and it's in the Big Ten. And so I think that is for the first time in 2 decades since the Florida Ohio State game is what I'll mark. The SEC is second, and how are they going to respond? Like again, like I don't think anyone's going to admit it, but it is the truth. And shout out the Big Ten for getting a third national champion in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. Looking into like taking like a snapshot into 26, 27, it seems like it'll kind of jump back on over to the SEC with LSU and Texas. Lord knows, maybe OSU is able to get it done this year. Only time will tell. But truly, my favorite part about all of that is it's just like a one last middle finger to Diego Pavia. Like I love that. For those who don't remember, like going into the year, he was like, "Oh, the SEC is where people come to actually compete."
Is
He's
it
like,
though? Is it? He was
like,
second in the Heisman. Is it? I get your point.
It's only you only have to put up 7 points against Iowa to beat them, and proceeds to lose to Iowa in a bowl game.
It was the best Gronowski game of the year. Oh my god! I'll never forget it.
Oh, I'm sure you were on cloud nine as a Gronowski guy. But no, I mean, yeah, the tides have shifted, and this has been an argument. Obviously, Big Ten fans have, me being one of them, have argued like, no, like the Big Ten belongs in the same conversation as the SEC. But it was really hard to justify that. And now, again, going 3 years back to back to back of it being a Big Ten team and a different Big Ten team. It's not like OSU winning it all over the last 3 years or something. It is a different Big Ten team all 3 years. Again, I think it kind of cements a little bit of your point. And yeah, I mean, as you said, we'll see how they rebound in 2026. So all that being said, again, this was the last college corner, the last official college corner of the year, of the 25-26 year. We will be right back at it again in 220 days from now, or whatever it ends up being. But we'll be right back at it for you guys. The college talk is not over because now we really get to meet the college butting heads with the NFL. Make sure you guys stay tuned for scouting. Already have I'm sure we've already previewed a lot of stuff. Like, I mean, one of the things in this game was like Ruben Bain, and I'm like, okay, like this dude's an NFL draft prospect. Like, who cares if he has sub 31-inch arms? But again, getting a little deep into the weeds here on that. But thank you guys for all the support that you guys have shown throughout the season. Me and Matt and our third co-host who does the NFL show with us, Ryan, really appreciate all the support that you guys have shown over the course of the season, and just know we are not going anywhere. We'll put out scouting stuff. But any final words for college football before we wrap it up for 200 days?
I'm glad we looked back. I'm glad we did that storyline thing because it's fun to holistically think about the season as a whole because every season is its own living, breathing thing, and no season is any different. Again, if you're upset we didn't talk about Indiana, like Indiana won the title, like that's the obvious story of the season. But
Yeah.
I think the national champion is always the obvious story of the season, so didn't really cover it too hard. But yeah, I think it's awesome to be in the scouting phase, but it's a bummer to have college football gone. But we get to spend all of spring and all of summer just as those. Every time the month turns, it's just the month closer to Texas Longhorn football. And this year we have to wait an extra week because the season starts. What is it? Like week 0 is like the 29th this year or something like that, and week 1 is the 5th.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. The national champion is going to be played in Vegas on like the 25th this year. Think about that. Like or next year. Like oh my, like that. If you thought calendar discourse was off the rocker this year, get ready. Just hold on, everybody. Everybody's going to be talking about how awful the calendar is, but no one's ever going to have a solution other than we got to start the season earlier. Like that's everybody. Don't get me started, but I'm getting myself started. But overall, just a great season. I'm happy to spend it with you, buddy. Again, hope we do this forever and ever and ever until we're old and gray. That's how you want to do anything. Do it with the people you love until you're old and gray, right? So, but no, this was great.